Okay, so here's my go-to move when I find out it's going to be 20 degrees at night and I've got some young brassicas that are out in the garden. Let's go find out what that looks like. Let's take this bit of compost material down here, dump it out. It's basically all stuff that came from the garden plus some leaves. We really just need to use the cart to collect some wood chips. We're going to use the wood chips to pin down the poly cover on the hoops. We're going to pick from some of the older wood chips on the left side, because when we no longer need this cover, we'll pull it off, and then those older wood chips are much closer to being compost. So it's an effective strategy. We're not trying to keep the weeds back right now. There really isn't much weed growth growing right now when the temperature is 20 degrees or 30 or 40 degrees. Not here anyway. All right, so I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to show you the gist of how this works. I'm going to turn you around and show you the only material I need to make this work as a frame. Looks a lot like this. Starts out as a piece of 1/2-inch EMT. You can find it at the local hardware store or at your home improvement stores. They sell it for the electricians to use. We bend it into this shape right here. Throw it on the ground. Basically just make a hoop with it. Okay, this little clip right here, it's a retaining clip. That's what we use to hold the poly on top. Little dandelion root, found it growing in the onions. That's something like Buddy Anderson's always asking me about. Do we see these? Yeah, every once in a while. It was hiding in there. So what I want to do is I want to make sure that I have some overlap with my plastic on the ground all the way around. And if you don't, just adjust it. Just adjust it as best as you can get so it's centered. And if it's not long enough, that's not a problem. We'll just add another piece. And that's going to close this baby right up. We'll go ahead and we'll apply these clips now. Once you're certain that it's centered, and you're going to have about that much space, maybe 6 to 8 inches on the end, and go ahead and put the clip on. It'll keep that there in place. And then pull the sheet taut. Is that the right word? Taut. And install the clip on the opposite side. Usually like to keep extra retaining clips on hand, so I can also put one right there in the middle, sort of designating the center line. If I didn't do such a good job laying this out before, I probably wouldn't have put those two outside clips on, the top one on the other one over there, because you might need to justify it so you get good coverage. But I think we're in good shape. Let's do the other side. Okay, so now in this case, I want to make sure that my sheet underneath is somewhat taut. which it is. And I'll put a clip right here in the middle, or assumably where the middle is. I'll put another one over here, connecting the dots, and then we'll start to get this draped. All you have to do is keep adding clips until you're certain that the poly is held down well. Until you're certain that if some late night winds come in, they're not going to blow your poly off. Okay, so now you have it covered. But covered as it is just like this, it's not good enough. And basically what I mean is, what we also have to do is pin down the edges so the wind and airflow doesn't get underneath it in any sort of destructive fashion. You can see the clips are located down low. Got one located down low right there, and then up towards the middle. It's not precision work. It doesn't have to be precise. It's just a tiny little micro ecosystem within a larger one, and it's going to protect these plants, in particular the younger ones, while we weather this cold weather. Okay, for the next step, we're going to go ahead and get set up, and I'm going to start pitching some wood chips around it. Y'all will see me moving with the broad fork. I like to put a little bit down at first to get the tension right, and as long as I don't poke the broad fork into the side of the poly, it's going to be essentially a sealed envelope in there. But believe it or not, the plants can still breathe. They will. They'll be fine about that, because there's plenty of oxygen, carbon dioxide that moves through the soils. This is a very simple system, and in only a few short minutes, you can actually cover a pretty substantial sized plot. To give you all some perspective while I'm doing this, I always make these hoop rings the same size. A 10-foot stick of tubing is only going to yield so much. So I try to optimize it, make the largest circle I can make, or half circle. Then we measure it to size and cut our polyplastic accordingly. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a quick look at what this looks like and round it all up. Here you have it. You can see extra, almost flange or flare at the bottom is covered by wood chips, weighed down all the way around. Okay, and on that other end where I opened it up, you can see the sun is setting over there on the right side. Maybe. There's my sun. Comes up over there. So I'll come here in the morning after the temperatures are more favorable, and I'll open up that end over there where you saw me add the extra piece to it. That's all I have to do. It's going to be really cold following night, so I'm going to go ahead and pin that back up the same way you saw me attach it the first time. I don't have to pull any of the chips away because the opening is on top. And that's the best place to allow the heat to leave anyway. Okay, so what do you think? Does it make sense? Is it simple? Is it easy? Something that you think you might be able to do? I'm really sure it is. I know it is, as a matter of fact. I didn't come up with it. Somebody else did it. I saw it. I sort of adapted it for my own needs. And now that's what we do, because I grow these plants, and I know it's going to take, by some reasonable measure, it's going to take just a little bit of effort to protect them when the temperatures really, really drop. Adult broccoli, they're more or less fine down there in the mid-20s. They don't have too much trouble with them. They make their own antifreeze. Same thing with the adult Brussels sprouts, even adult artichoke, as it seems. They make their own antifreeze, so 20 to 25 degrees, 22 degrees isn't that much for them. But if they're young, or they're babies, or they're just something that you just put out in the garden, you didn't know any better, they haven't quite established the soil relationships they need to produce those antifreezes. They don't have access to the chemistry the way the mother does. Those older and more established plants are going to be deeper into the soils. They're going to be able to capitalize on the microbes that are in the soils and do some pretty amazing things, especially some of the relationships that they form with this microbes. So be on the lookout for it. Young plants are going to struggle when it's really cold. Mature plants will do better. In this particular example right here, I'm protecting both, the younger and the older ones. I like to grow the younger ones in the shadow of the older ones, and then we replace the older ones as they start to age out. So this plot started with 6, and we're down to 2, and I've increased the plot with some babies. We're just going to keep on going and keep on sowing. So anyway, the more you know, the more you grow. Like, follow, sub, share. Sharing is important. If you can do that, you're really, really helping me in a big way to help you. Peace, love, joy, have faith.